Welcome to your next lesson, and this one is really interesting. It is all about how to incorporate humor into your serious or even heartbreaking stories. And I know you may already have that little voice in your head that's saying, okay Dave, well why would I actually want to do that? And the answer is really, really important. You know, our purpose as speakers, presenters and trainers is to engage our audiences and to connect with them. And if you use this correctly, you incorporate little humor nuggets, chuckle factors, then instead of just bringing your audience down with a tragic story, you're bringing them on this beautiful road of emotions, of ups and downs, laughing and crying, and hopefully at the very end, if done really well, you end up leaving your audience on a high and chuckling or laughing. And the process is actually not very difficult, but there are two things that immediately get in the way, and there's two questions I want to answer up front to frame them in your minds. The first is, why do so many speakers struggle with this? And the answer is very, very easy. They don't have a process. And so far in all the lessons I've been talking about the different processes that I use. Well, in this lesson we're going to learn about the process that I've been using to incorporate humor into my personal tragic stories for probably over 15 years. The other question that needs to be asked and answered is, why are speakers hesitant to use humor in their personal heartbreaking stories? And the answer there is also very simple. It is because they are not prepared to take the risk. You know, stuff like, well, what if the audience doesn't laugh? And the other thing is they don't have a good understanding of how powerful it can be to take tragic circumstances and to incorporate little nuggets of humor to where you're bringing your audience again on that road of emotions and making your material so memorable that years later you've got people coming up to you saying, I remember your story about such and such. That is what we're aiming for. So the next thing I want to do is talk to you about the process that I use. And again, it's not very difficult, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So here are three items that I want you to focus on. These are the three areas that I use most of the time when I am trying to mine humor in very serious material. So let's have a look at these now. Okay, step one of this process, basically what we're doing is what we've done in other lessons, writing out our material, making it concise, making it ultra visual so that when you're telling it to the audience, they feel that they're right there witnessing the event. So let's imagine you've done that, and now I want you to picture your material and you've got lots of different paragraphs. And in these paragraphs, they each may have some scene that's going on. And what we're going to do in this step is we're going to analyze these scenes down to the minute detail. And we're going to ask ourselves a couple of questions. What's ironic in this scene? Is there something funny or ironic that's going on here? We're also going to look at what are some of the character traits of the characters that are in this scene. Is there something funny about them that the people, the audience should know about? The other thing we look at is, what are some of the physical characteristics about the characters? Is there something funny looking about them that you could describe? And the last step, the fourth step in this, is basically to look for stories. When I say look for stories, what I'm doing is I'm looking for, is there a story I can tell about one of the characters to describe them? Or another way of looking at this is there a story that one of your characters told you that you could share? And again, what we're looking for is little vignettes, little short stories that will bring out some humor. And so what are we doing in this single step? Breaking it down into 4 points. What could be ironic in this? What could be some of the character traits that could be in it? What could be some of the physical characteristics of the characters? And then we're also looking for stories that you can tell about some of the characters, or tell a story that maybe one of the characters has told you. And again, the focus is we're trying to find the little funny nuggets that we can develop further. So now let's go into step number 2. And step number 2 is basically embellishment. And we've covered this already in a separate lesson, but let me just summarize it. You know, when we're going to embellishment, again, we're back into each scene. We're taking our paragraphs, we're stepping into the scene, and we're having a look around 360 degrees. We're asking ourselves, from a senses perspective, where can I go from here? What could I hear? What could I see? What could I smell? What do I feel? What's ironic? What's frustrating me in this scene? And we're just trying to look for all the embellishment things that can identify little humor nuggets. So that's number 2 there, is the embellishment, and you can go back to the embellishment lesson if you want to drill down into some more detail there. The third step in this process is the rule of 3, and again it's another lesson that we've covered, and it is basically the setup, twist. And the twist being you're fooling the audience's brains, and that triggers them into laughter. Again, it's a lesson that we've covered already, and if you need to go into more detail there, certainly go back to the previous lesson to refresh on that.